saw another. You have been weighed and found guilty. What we are dealing with here today is the magic which was started by a fictional character who was called Ibn Washia. The man never existed. We got these Sigma Pi Phi and various other occult traditions that have been followed, which is also stuck in this Magic 101, which Black Lotus Civilization presents Kemet Ritual Magic 101 Exposed. According to Ritual, texts anonymously published in Berlin in 1770, the highest order of ancient Egyptian initiation consisting of 7 degrees. The ancient Egyptian language had not yet been deciphered in 1770. However, the ritual of the Krater-Rappoa is standard 18th century high degree Freemasonry with no resemblance to actual Egyptian temple ritual. The supposed Egyptian origin of the ritual is thus yet another fictitious origin story of the sort so frequently practiced at the time. There seems to be no evidence that the Krater-Rappoa existed in the 18th century Germany as a functioning secret society. The published ritual, however, had a surprisingly wide influence. Several groups of French occultists in the 19th century worked the Krater-Rappoa rituals. And the Ordo Templi Astarte, a currently active American magical order, uses the Krater-Rappoa system as the basis for its own system of initiation. See Ordo Templi Astarte. And then in 1895, he matriculated at Trinity College, Cambridge, and briefly pursued chemistry, but he left without a degree. Money inherited from his father, who died when Crowley was 5, enabled him to pursue the lifestyle of a bohemian poet and self-published 2 books of poetry, including a pornographic volume entitled White Stains. Like many young fin de siècle, men of letters, he gravitated toward the occult, and in 1898 he was initiated into the neophyte grade of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the premier British occult secret society of the time. Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Our brothers and sisters in the Kemetic community have fell victim to the proselyte personality of just hearing one of your own people leading you down the path of failure and destruction as a species. Oh yes, and you will be calling on this Grand Master Teacher in this Kemetic community. And the problem is established by the 3 young African-American male students, the founders of Honorable A. Langston Taylor, Honorable Leonard F. Morris, and Honorable Charles I. Brown. Hermes Trismegistus, the legendary founder of the Hermetic tradition and the inventor of astrology, alchemy, medicine, and magic, Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes thrice great, was literally a figure to conjure with from the dawn of the Middle Ages until the 17th century. Medieval writers disagreed about his place in history. Some claimed that he was the same person as Enoch, the grandfather of Noah, who was lifted up into heaven to become the great angel Metatron, while others held that he was the wisest of the Egyptians and lived at the time of Moses. According to the early Christian writer Eusebius, he wrote 36 books on philosophy and theology and 6 more on astronomy. See Alchemy Magic. The facts behind the legend are as interesting as the legend itself. After Alexander the Great conquered Egypt and installed a Greek ruling class there, the Greek philosophy and Egyptian spirituality mingled freely on the banks of the Nile. In the hybrid culture that emerged, the Greek god Hermes took on many of the attributes of Thoth, the ibis-headed Egyptian god of wisdom, whose traditional titles include thrice great. Just as Egyptian magical writings from the pharaonic past claim Thoth as their author, many of the astrological, alchemical, and mystical writings produced in Hellenistic Egypt were attributed to Hermes, the thrice great. In the last few centuries of the Roman Empire, these writings had a wide circulation and were pressed into service by the proponents of many different traditions. Several of the early theologians of Christianity, including Augustine of Hippo, quoted the writings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, and thus guaranteed that later generations of Christians would remember him as a wise man of the distant past. One dialogue attributed to Hermes as Asclepius survived into the Middle Ages in a Latin translation, and this is the reference in old Christian sources helped build Hermes' medieval reputation. Most of the other writings attributed to Hermes vanished forever in the chaotic years that followed the collapse of the Roman Empire in 1453. However, a manuscript volume containing 18 short books attributed to Hermes surfaced in Greece, translated by Marsilio Ficino, one of the greatest scholars of the age. This collection, the Corpus Hermeticum, launched the tradition of Renaissance Hermeticism and directly or indirectly became the core inspiration for the most of the occult secret societies of the next 400 years.